Welcome back, everyone. We are about to do chapter 26. It's getting good. We're almost done. And I want to thank everybody for going with me on this journey. It's time to sit back, relax with your cup of tea or your beverage of some sort, cuddle up, maybe in front of the nice fireplace, and get ready. Here we go, chapter 26. The ship would dock in less than 2 hours. I tucked my hair beneath my hood and tightened the belt at my waist. My hands were clammy, muscles aching with tension. Each hour ticked closer to the rendezvous made it harder to concentrate. This was the lead I'd been waiting for, but I couldn't shake the hollow feeling in my stomach. All I had to do was lay low and identify Iron Hazel. Maybe I'd get lucky and see an opportunity to apprehend him. But the plan was to track him, find out where he was hiding, and take him down. Catching him would bring us closer to catching Ella's killer and would help bring justice to the other victims. Us. When would I stop referring to everything with an us attached to it? There was no more us, only me, and maybe Vivian if she stopped giving me a disappointed scowl every time I opened my mouth. She claimed I was being intentionally stubborn, even using the words pig-headed. Yeah, but she's a good friend. You guys know that. Sometimes that's what a good friend does, even though you don't want to see it. Vivian might be the type of friend to follow me into quicksand if that's where I led her, but she'd grumble the whole way and make sure her last words were, I told you so. Well, yeah. That was why she didn't know about tonight's caper. Tagging along while I visited with the loan shark was one thing, especially since she'd seemed to charm the scoundrel. But going after a potential killer? No way. I couldn't risk it. Ugh. I was turning into Derek, the king of safety. Regret warmed his way into my chest. Our last encounter had been playing on repeat in my mind. The way his hands felt against my face, the deep, soothing tone of his voice. How there seemed to be so much left unsaid, and how his pain had broken my heart even more than his decision to push me away. I was just thinking while I was reading this, I don't know if you guys have this, like if you have somebody there protecting you or just a more of an authority figure, like maybe some of you have the spouse and you can feel sort of uh it allows you to feel more carefree if they're the type of person that's going to be like looking out all the time. Does that make sense? Like I was just sitting here remembering that, I could be a little bit more carefree when I had my husband, who's now crossed over. I don't know if some of y'all know, some of y'all don't know, but it's like it allowed me to be more carefree. It allowed me to be like she is, kind of just making choices uh, because she feels safe with him and she can kind of do things. He's the grounding force. I hope that each of you guys have that, whether it's your spouse or a good friend like Vivian and him and Derek. Yeah, I was just thinking that in my head. Like, that's a good place to be, where one of you can be the protector while the other one is more carefree and lighthearted and laughing and playful. You know? I hope you get what I mean. Anyway, it was just in my head. Back to the story. Sometimes I allow myself to imagine different outcomes. Funny how every fictional outcome had us leaving together. Damn it. There was that word again. Two sneaky letters that wouldn't leave me alone. Was there such a thing as selective lobotomy? If so, sign me up. I glanced at the time. I'd stalled long enough. My fingers trailed over the small vials of powder I'd attached to my belt. Sure, a witch's weapons were her spells, but just in case, I'd tucked a small sheath blade into my boot. A pinch of powder and a dose of steel made for one prepared witch. Yeah, that's true. Vivian's hypnotic voice echoed down the hallway. I paused outside her seance room. Inside, she clung to an older woman's hand, eyes closed, channeling a spirit. Incense burned and candles flickered, though the room was as chilly as an icebox. One of her eyes popped open when I stepped on a loose floorboard, the creak ruining my stealthy getaway. Keep your eyes shut, Miss Baldwin. The spirit is getting stronger. I just need to light another candle. Vivian slipped out of her chair and pointed a finger. Don't move. Shoot. She thought she was going to get out of there. She said the words to me, but Mrs. Baldwin nodded. Vivian followed me into the waiting room, assuming her scowl of disdain. Where are you going dressed as a thief in the night? This is your cloak, Viv. Yeah, well, I usually wear that one when I'm about to do something stupid. So, good choice. I have errands. Don't wait up. Errands, huh? Okay, let's pretend I believe that. Go back to your client. I know what I'm doing. I'll be back later. I opened the door and hurried down the steps, the night air freezing my breath and creating an icy sheen on the cobblestone. Vivian stood in the doorway. Hey, Tess, before you go, want to know the funny thing about you and ghosts? I paused at the bottom step and sighed. Apparently she needed the last word, too. What's that, Viv? She took a breath and waited until I turned to face her. You act the same. They wander around completely invisible, watching other people live their lives. Most of them don't even understand why. They're stuck. Then, one day, if they're lucky, they meet someone who can see them. And suddenly, they're not alone anymore. I think it might be like that in life too. When you find someone who sees you differently than anyone else, Tess, someone who opens your eyes to new possibilities and helps you deal with the baggage in your past, it changes things. What a shame that you're willing to give it all up. She gave me a weak smile. But, hey, what do I know? I talk to dead people. The door closed as she went back inside. My hand trembled on the iron railing. A full minute passed before I took a wobbly step into the street. The wind stung my eyes, making them well up. Yes, it was the wind and not an emotional response to Vivian's lecture. Okay, I believe you. The ghosts were messing with her head. I wasn't invisible, not literally, but wasn't there a part of me that had always felt unseen? The witch who wished she was better. All my life, I'd lived in my mother's shadow, the shadow that only got bigger after her death. That didn't make me a ghost. I kept walking, letting my conviction carry me down the road until even that felt thin and useless. My mind churned. Derek had set aside his prejudice. He saw my intentions, welcomed my ideas, and treated me like an equal. His accusations in the holding cell had hurt. It made me think he didn't know me as well as I'd thought. Except I didn't believe that. I'd shaken his confidence and let my misconceptions about my worth spoil everything I'd accomplished. It was ironic how I'd insisted I wanted a partner, then didn't treat him like one. I that is so true. I'm gonna read that again. It was ironic how I had insisted I wanted a partner, then didn't treat him like one. Now, how many of you ladies do this? You insist you want this partner, and then you don't treat him like one. Think about that, 'cause I am. I hadn't trusted him even after he'd asked me to. And it had been my lies, not my failed spells or poor life choices that had driven him away. Maybe it wasn't too late. If I wanted to set things right, I'd have to be completely honest. Ooh. That's what she said, not me. Okay. Honest about the big stuff. A white lie here and there never hurt a witch. But that also meant being honest with myself. Double ooh. The truth was, I wasn't ready to give up. Not the shop, not the case, and especially not Derek. Finally! She's finally coming to her senses. Oh my gosh. Can y'all see a little bit of yourselves in her, or is that just me? Just like, oh. It's so funny because I just did a video. I think it'll be coming out, and I was channeling, and it was about me getting in my own way, about all of us getting in our own way. Shouldn't I? So I'm back. I'm going back to the story. Shouldn't I at least try to win him back? What better way to lure a detective than with the clue we'd been searching for? Damn, Vivian had the last word, and I told you so coming her way. A carriage, a carriage rumbled past. I raised my hand, picking up my pace to chase after it. The driver pulled over and I climbed inside. Where to, miss? Take me to the Royal Agency, as fast as you can. 20 minutes later, I was standing at Derek's office. If he threw me out again, I didn't know what I would do, especially since I'd decided I wanted to finish the case together. My knuckles connected with the wood, and I heard his clipped voice call out from behind. Enter! Derek's head was lowered, his attention buried in a stack of papers. He didn't react when I walked into his office. Did you bring me the case file? His heavy sigh made the candle flame wave. Put it on my desk and head home. It's late. Do you always talk to your secretary that way, detective? His hands stilled and a splash of ink welling where the pen stalled. He lifted his head, and the intensity in his gaze made me falter. Tessa, what are you doing here? Is everything... We don't have much time. I know where to find Iron Hazel, and I need your help. No, I want your help. My voice crackled, and I had to clear my throat before I could continue. Detective, can we be partners one more time? Aw, I'm such a sap. Okay. If y'all don't tell anybody, I won't tell anybody either. I won't tell anybody your secrets if you don't tell anybody my secrets. That's me telling you guys. Okay, back to the story. The wharf swarmed with sailors unloading cargo. Crates swung over the ship railing and were slowly lowered down the deck. Shouts and animated conversations filled the air. Derek had placed officers around the perimeter, so there was no way in and no way out without one of them seeing. We moved through the crowd in search of the ship Charlie had written down. A crate of fish spilled open in our path, and the floppy monsters stared at us with beady, lifeless eyes. Their smell clogged the air. Ugh, that sounds nasty. Okay, back to the story. I used my sleeve to cover my mouth and pointed to the furthest ship. Over there! That's the one! Derek hesitated, reaching for my arm when I tried to move past him. Tessa, wait! I recognized the indecision in his face. No, don't even think about it. I'm going with you. We're partners, remember? That was the deal. He sighed and gripped my shoulder. Yes, I remember. Promise me you'll be careful. Always. We should split up. I'm not letting you out of my sight. She's cuckoo. You're being unreasonable. Tessa, his hands fisted my cloak, pulling it tight. Don't push me. Fine, we'll stay together, but we need a plan so we can get closer without attracting attention. My foot tapped lightly against the ground while I considered our options. The group of men stumbled past, bumping into stacks of crates. They laughed and kept moving, leaving a trail of empty bottles in their wake. I picked up one and handed it to Derek, then retrieved another for myself. Cheers! With a clink of my bottle against his, I swayed into him, wrapping my arms around his waist. Derek took the full brunt of my weight, dragging my hood over my head when it slipped free. He chuckled at my drunken act, and the mood lightened. His smile made my heart shudder. We wandered closer to the ship, weaving unsteadily through the mob of people. Near the gangway, sank to my knees, peeking beneath the curve of my hood. A man with a ledger directed crates, and passengers in different directions. We watched for almost half an hour, heads low, leaning drunkenly against the wooden post. Sorry, I need to take a drink real quick. Okay. Are you sure this is the right place? Derek asked. Why? Is there somewhere else you need to be? No, nowhere else. The arm he'd wrapped around my waist tightened. I relaxed into his side, taking comfort in his solid warmth. Stakeouts were my new favorite thing. I bet they were. I bet they are. Next time, I might bring snacks and definitely some real wine. Assuming there would be a next time. Derek had agreed to this little mission, but it didn't mean we were back together. I mean, from my perspective, why you gotta look at things ahead? Just enjoy the moment. Okay, back to the story. Why did you change your mind? I thought you wanted to win. Silence stretched between us. I fiddled the top of my bottle, circling my finger around the rim as I stalled for time. I didn't know how to start. His hands closed over my fingers. You always fiddle with things when you're nervous. Stop. Tell me the truth. I can't believe you noticed that. What, fiddling with things? You do it all the time, he paused, angling his head to rest against mine. I notice everything you do. Oh, hey now. That makes me kind of nervous. That's what I'm saying. Okay, back to it. I notice everything you do. You play with my collar when you're trying to get your way, and I pretend I don't like it. You turn your head when you curse. I don't know why you bother. I can hear you loud and clear, and I know you can't see it, but you get this look in your eyes when you're about to cast a spell. It's half terror and half hope, and every time I want the spell to work because I know you're going to flash me one of your smug smiles. I do not have a smug smile. You do, and for some reason I find it incredibly charming. His voice lowered. So, tell me why you changed your mind. The stupid wind was making my eyes sting again. Yeah, blame it on the wind. How was I supposed to talk around the lump in my throat? I cleared it away. It was the thing Vivian said about ghosts being invisible. You kind of had to be there. She's probably waiting her whole life to use ghost as an analogy, so I have to give her credit. I looked up at his face, but she had a point. And what was that? With embarrassment heating my cheeks, I bowed my head. You see me. No one else does, but you do. Tessa. I know, I'm botching it. I said you had to be there. Of course, you can see me in a literal sense, but Derek placed his hands over my mouth. I inhaled a sharp breath, my eyes growing wide. I had not just he had not just shushed me while I was attempting to bare my soul. Tessa, look. He gestured towards the man with the ledger. A hooded figure approached and handed a heavy pouch to the crewman. That way, the man muttered, pointing to a pile of crates. The figure turned, and the hood fell back to reveal a familiar face. Helen Lockwood? What was she doing here? I met Derek's equally wild gaze, and he pressed a finger to his lips. With a nod, we climbed to our feet and followed her towards the crates, keeping our distance. Another man cracked the lid with a crowbar, and the pungent scent of herbs mixed with salt in the air. Is that all of it? Where is the nightingale? She asked. He cracked another lid, revealing jars of dark berries, nightshades, another name for belladonna. Helen was Iron Hazel? My mind raced. The whole time, she'd been hiding in plain sight. I was right to be suspicious of her from the start. My instincts were good. There might be something to Vivian's "I told you so" after all. They should make me a detective. Have it delivered here. She handed over a slip of paper, and the man nodded, then crooked his finger until she leaned closer. Whatever he whispered in her ear made her go rigid. Derek had turned his back and was tugging on my sleeve for me to turn as well. But I was so busy planning my victory party that when Helen angled her head and looked right at me, I froze. Blast! She took off at a dead run, using the crowd to mask her escape. Derek signaled his men, and we began to chase after her, losing sight altogether when she turned a corner. Frustration pumped my legs faster. We couldn't lose her. She'd go to ground, and we'd never find her again. I rounded the corner into the dark alley and spotted her slipping between a narrow crevice. It was too small for Derek to fit. He grabbed my arm as I attempted to squeeze through. No, we stay together. She's getting away. Go around the other side. I'll be okay. I shook off his arm, his fingers grasping, then slipping through mine. Damn it, Tessa! The flat of his hand rammed the wall as I navigated through the narrow space. Go! Grating his teeth in fury, Derek disappeared from view. His footstep faded as he ran parallel down another alley. I caught sight of Helen's blonde hair and ran after her. I needed something to slow her down, or I'd never catch up. Digging deep, I channeled my magic, hoping a burst of energy would take her down or knock something in her path. My fist shot out, sparking arcing from my fingers. Sorry, sparks arcing from my fingers. I missed, but the jolt of magic hit a barrel, which exploded, sending a stake of wood into Helen's leg. She shrieked and limped to the end of the alley, then stuttered to a stop. A wall of crates blocked her path. To her right was another alley, but she'd never make it in her injured she'd never make it on her injured leg, sorry. She turned to face me, lungs heaving, gulps of air. I bent at the waist, a stitch burning my side. Man, she was fast. Helen was pulling a knife when I looked up again. Out of options, she advanced. Res- I rubbed my hands together to resurrect magic, but nothing happened. Fists clenched. I tried anyway, splaying open my fingers to complete an utter failure. Time for Plan B. I grappled at my wrist for the vial of powder. Helen attacked. It slipped from my hand and rolled across the ground as I ducked. Her blade whistled past my face. I dropped to a knee, reaching for the knife in my boot instead. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Derek charging from the other direction. He was too far out to stop a second attack, but at least Helen wouldn't get away. Unable to reach my weapon in time, her knife flashed the moonlight. Sorry, let me read that again. Unable to reach my weapon in time, her knife flashed in the moonlight. I tried to roll and dodge, but it only managed to lift my arms and shield my body. No! Derek's guttural cry ricocheted off the brick building. The blade sliced through the sleeve of my cloak and bit into my skin. I gasped as I reached for the wound. My fingers came away sticky with blood. Helen backed up, her eyes wild, then thrust the knife again, aiming for my chest. Oh, Helen is not playing. Magic finally surged from my fingertips, releasing into her. Her body convulsed and she staggered back. It bought me enough time. Falling within reach, Derek tackled her to the ground. The knife skittered across the stone while Helen shrieked, fighting with her whole body. But his knee pressed firm onto her back, forcing her face to the gravel. He wrenched her arm behind her and circled iron cuffs around her wrist. It's over, Helen. You're under arrest. Heaving her to her feet, Derek passed her off to the waiting officer. More had converged in our location, watching as more had converged on our location, watching as Helen tried to dislodge the man. She looked arrogant. Her laughter filled the air. It's not over. Not even close. Derek barked instructions as officers dragged her away. Another burst of crazed laughter made my skin crawl. She was insane. How could she even how could she have poisoned her own stepsister? Yeah, I had a feeling it was her doing something. Like she's doing something. I pressed my fingers against my forehead. Pressure built behind my eyelids, and it hurt to think. Helen had to be working with someone else, possibly the man Argus had seen with Jane Porter before her death. She would talk. She couldn't talk. She would talk. She couldn't hold out forever. We were so close, so lightheaded. A wave of dizziness caused bile to climb my throat. I reached for the wall to steady myself. Derek, something's wrong. Tongue thick in my mouth, I couldn't form the words. Oh, I bet she had something on that blade. That's what I'm just thinking right now. Sorry, back to the story. They sounded slurred, far away. I tried again. My sentence worse the second time. Tessa, are you all right? Let me see your arm. He broke away from the officer. I blinked to clear my vision as his features split into two. Four arms, four legs, running now as I swayed on my feet. The ground rushed to meet me. He caught me before I hit the dirt. Derek examined my injuries, tearing at my cloak until the wound met fresh air. I hissed in a breath as his fingers probed the laceration. It's not deep and barely bleeding. I don't understand what's happening. Another wave of dizziness hit, buckling my knees. His grip strengthened, keeping me upright. Spots danced in my vision. Of all the rotten luck, I struggled to speak. Had to let him know. The knife, I mumbled. She poisoned it. Take me to Vivian. He was already lifting me up, my feet losing purchase on the ground, as he tucked me against his chest. Bring the knife, he shouted over the shoulder. Smart. We'd need that. Haze clouded my thoughts. There was something we could do. A spell, maybe? I wasn't very good at spells. I never wanted my life to depend on one. It didn't bode well. My head rolled against his chest. Derek's footsteps were so loud, pounding in my ear. No, his heart. It knocked fast as in his rib cage, and I pressed my palm against the spot. Shh, I'm trying to sleep. You can't sleep right now, he joisted me. Sorry. You can't sleep right now, he jostled me, making my surroundings spin. My stomach rolled. I hated Helen with every fiber of my being. Whatever she'd laced that blade with was going to make me toss my dinner at Derek's feet. Hopefully by then, death would be swift. You didn't come back from humiliation. Sorry, you didn't come back from humiliation like that. Not even when you'd had a huge bowl of Vivian's hearty chicken stew for dinner. Seconds passed. Minutes. Time was fuzzy. We stopped, and Derek tossed a terse command at someone above him who was talking to. Who was he talking to? Horses neighed, and I knew. Don't talk to the horses. I groaned. They can't help. I'm not talking to the horses. Somewhere close by, rain snapped. My hands tingled in his shirt, pulling at the fabric. You can't make me ride a horse. I won't forgive you. I'm too dizzy, and you're likely to drop me. I would never drop you. Can't risk it. I'd rather die by poison than be trampled. You're not going to die. I blinked, my lids closing far longer than they should. If you say so. I do, he snapped. Keep your eyes open, Tessa. For once, do as I say. Derek's hold tightened as the carriage lurched, arms anchoring me to him, absorbing the worst of the bumps in the road. He smoothed the hair out of my face while I stared up at him, trying to follow his orders. His features were pinched with fear, eyes stormy. People only look at you the way people only look at you that way when you were dying. There's four of you, I whispered, as his tormented face morphed into many. I struggled against the weight, dragging my eyelids. Don't be mad. I can handle four mad detectives. One's bad enough. I can't handle four mad detectives. One's bad enough. I'm sorry, I was turning the page. Okay. Don't be mad. I can't handle four mad detectives. One's bad enough. I'm not mad. His lips found my temple, stayed there. A sharp breath expanded his chest, and he choked on it, gathering me closer. You never get mad. You get even. I remember. That's right, I do. His voice was husky against the side of my neck. You're going to let me get even? Maybe. But, just in case, give Vivian my share. The carriage seat spun like a top. Black vines slithered into the corner of my vision, spreading faster and faster, blocking everything else out. Your share of what? The reward. It was dark all of a sudden, pitch black, like being under water. Derek's frantic cry was muffled echoes in my ear. Tessa? Tessa! And then there was light, brilliant, crisp, and blinding white. The sensation of being lifted high, floating on air, leaving my body, dropping fast to oblivion. I felt nothing at all. Ooh, let's see what's happening. Okay, chapter 27. It's getting good. Guys, we only have like, I think, four more chapters to go, so yeah. Chapter 27. There she is. Vivian's face swam into sight, easing my eyes open to take in my surroundings. I realized I was in her guest room, propped up on pillows, wearing one of her sleeveless shirts. My clothes had been discarded in a heap near the foot of the bed, blood and grime staining the garments. They needed to be tossed, or better yet, burned. A roll of bandages lay on the side table along with my reference book on poisons. My memory came back all at once, and I groaned. Am I dead? No. Unfortunately, no. Her lips crooked into a wistful smile. Exactly. She's such a good friend. I love her. It's such a shame, too. I'd already figured out how I wanted to spend your share of the reward. I scooted back against the pillow, surprised to find my dizziness gone. Even my stomach felt settled. It was a miracle. I'd held on to my dignity. There was only a slight twinge in my arm where Helen had cut me with her knife. Were you planning to erect a vast monument in my name? Vivian blinked. No, I was going to buy a horse farm. Shit. Oh, get out. I shoved her off the bed with my good arm, and she landed on the carpet, her lips shaking with suppressed laughter. Come on, that's funny. Only you would rant about horses when you're delirious. I squeezed the bridge of my nose. Flashes of mine and Derek's woozy conversation made me cringe. Had I really accused him of talking to the horses? Thankfully, I'd been on my deathbed, and you could say pretty much anything when you're about to die. That was the rule I was sure had been written down somewhere. Vivian remained on the floor, not bothering to contain her amusement as I scrunched my nose in disgust. It is nothing sacred. I can't even enjoy a good old fashioned near death experience without mockery. Well, you could have if you'd been near death, which you weren't. After Derek brought you here, I performed your spell with the enchanted Rosenfin. Sorry, you had left over from testing Liam's shirt. Turns out Helen dipped the blade in, is it Icofras sap? It's essentially harmless, meant to disarm rather than kill, which is why it's quick acting. It made you dizzy, probably nauseous, too. Don't mind me. I should have gone easy on your stew before I went hunting for a killer. Lesson learned. I folded my arms over my stomach and frowned. Are you sure I wasn't dying a little bit? It was dicey near the end there. Oh my gosh, she's so dramatic. That's me saying that. Okay, back to the story. No, the poison only induces fainting. I fainted? I kicked the blanket off my legs and sat on the edge of the bed, head in my hands. How embarrassing. Does Derek know? Yeah, sorry. If it makes you feel better, he wouldn't leave your side. It was very sweet, but it made keeping your diagnosis from him tricky. Great. I couldn't even die properly. I was just a ranting lunatic who'd been dosed with the hallucinogenic. Even my own wound wasn't anything to get excited about. Is he still here? Yes, he's been pacing outside since I kicked him out of your room. He did not appreciate that, but it's my house, and I thought you might want to get rid of all of this. She swung her hand in my general direction. Awkwardness before you. I'm sorry, let me read that again. But it's my house, and I thought you might want to get rid of all of this. She swung her hand in general direction. Awkwardness before you see him again. Maybe fix your hair. What's wrong with my hair? Nothing if you're going for the I was attacked in the alley and it shows kind of look. Geez, thanks, Viv. She shrugged and had me turned so she could sit beside me on the bed. The mattress dipped as she reached for the brush on the nightstand. Then she pulled the bristles through my tangled waves. We were quiet for a long moment, her fingers soft as she sifted through the strands, arranging them so they'd frame my face. There, all better. Her hands stiffed. I'm glad you're okay, Tess. I have enough friends who are ghosts. Right? That's so true. I smiled. I know. Her fingers found mine. She squeezed. Are you ready to see Derek? Or do you want me to tell him to come back tomorrow? Nerves fluttered in my stomach. There was no sense in putting off any longer, even though I was scared to see him. What if he made sure I was okay and then just left? There she goes, overthinking. Did I have it in me to change his mind? If being someone adjacent to death's door hadn't made him realize how much he cared for me, I didn't have a ton of other cards to play. I want to see him. Vivian rose and walked to the door, pulling it open to pulling it open a crack to say, sorry. She's feeling better. You can sit with her if you want. The door was pushed wide, and Derek appeared in the entrance. Air left his lungs in a rush when he saw me sitting in a bed. In bed. Vivian patted his shoulders. It's late. I'm turning in. Good night, you two. She nudged him further into the room, then closed the door, her footsteps fading down the hall. Dirk stood unmoving, watching me as if I might vanish into thin air. The strength of his gaze made me restless, and I slid to the edge of the bed, wincing when I put pressure on my injured arm. He was beside me in an instant. Go slow. Are you dizzy? No, I'm fine. It'll take more than a knife wound and poison to get rid of me. My smile dimmed beneath his fierce expression. Geez, where was the joy at my speedy recovery? How about you're the bravest, most resilient, and stunning beautiful witch the kingdom has ever seen? Something at this point. I'd take a fist bump. to the shoulder and a "Hey, good to see ya." Dirk sank into a chair beside the bed, where he bent over and dropped his head into his hands. His coat was filthy. A long swath of blood had dried on his sleeve, and droplets dotted the side of his scattered pattern in a scattered pattern. There was no saving it. Apparently the coat knew how to die properly. I think you need to burn your coat. He laughed, a sound of abrasive, almost brutal. You're always worried about my clothes. The devil take my clothes, Tessa. I thought I was going to lose you. He lifted his head, anguished eyes locking with mine. I went still, my insides rolling from intensity. His voice was rough with emotion. When you're blacked when you blacked out, I lost it. I've spent my entire career as a detective hardening myself against the things I witness every day, and in a single second, seeing your eyes close like that, it ruined me. Derek. My throat closed. The pain in his voice stabbed me harder than Helen's knife ever could. When I found out you'd hid your assassination, sorry, when I found out you hid your association with Argus, I had to let you go. I couldn't trust you. How could I protect you when you were lying to me? It was so hard. I never would have betrayed you or the case for him. Not ever. I know that. It was wrong of me to suggest you would. The things I said to you, accused you of, I hate myself for it. I was angry. I felt helpless, and I'm not supposed to be. The people in this kingdom look to me to know what to do. The rules, the routine, the structure. It's the only way I know how to maintain control. And you obliterate each one over and over. He sighed and scrubbed his hand ruthlessly through his hair. This isn't the time. I don't want to upset you. You need to rest. He pushed out of his chair and headed for the door. My mouth dropped. Wait, seriously? He was going to leave after saying all that? His hand was on the doorknob. He really was. My heart in my throat. I sprang from the bed, feet tangling in the blanket, so I almost nosedived onto the floor. Thankfully, I caught my balance, a feat I'd taken for granted until a short while ago. Wait, Derek Chambers, don't you dare turn your back on a dying girl. She's so dramatic. Oh. His head dropped forward. Tessa, you're not dying. It's a flesh wound. You don't know that for sure. Actually, I do. I bandaged it myself. This was not going as I hoped. Humor me then. I did faint. That has to count for something. All right. He backed away from the door, his lips twitching in the barest twist of a smile. What do you want to say? I exhaled and wiped my sweaty palms against his shirt. His eyes followed the action, lingering for a beat at the hemline, which stopped mid-thigh. There was definitely a draft in here. I'd completely forgotten about my lack of attire, and my skin flushed as I fiddled with the bottom of the shirt. Tessa, you're fiddling again. Nervous? No, Hey, stop noticing that. I clenched my fingers into fists. Everything I wanted to say clogged in my throat. So many things. Apologies, demands, explanations. They all sounded inferior in my head. I wasn't good at this. Asking people to stay, hoping they'd look past all my faults. It was madness. But I needed to try. Um, don't go? That's all she's got. Poor thing. There, it was a start. I had this. You asked me earlier why I changed my mind about finishing the case alone, and it's because I want to finish it with you. I shouldn't have lied to you about Argus and my debt. You deserve the truth. I got scared. I'm not used to disappointment, but I couldn't handle disappointing you. You wouldn't have disappointed me, Tessa. I held up a trembling finger. It's rude to interrupt a dying girl. She's gonna milk that for everything. I'm not finished. There was that half smile again. He nodded, and I took a moment to pace. My heart beat so fast, I figured it was only a matter of time before decided it had had enough and gave out. Then I'd really be at death's door. I shook my hands in my face and faced him. Sorry, I shook out my hands and faced him. Okay, you want honesty? Here's the truth. I'm a mess. My magic is mediocre at best. I'm broke. And I've ruined everything between us with my lies. The thing is, I'm not going to wake up tomorrow and be perfect. I'm going to make mistakes, probably lots of them. Pumpkins will explode. I might even cause another plague. I let out a shuddering breath. But I love you, and if you'll stay with me, I want to be imperfect with you. Nice. The silence was unbearable. Derek stared. I couldn't tell if he was going to laugh or put a man-sized hole in the door trying to escape. He might do both. Sick with fear, I broke the silence. All right, I'm finished dying now. You can say something. Are you sure you're not going to relapse? He moved closer. I don't think so. Good. A few feet separated us. Then, nothing at all, as his hands framed my face. I wasn't leaving. Vivian mixed some powder to help you sleep, and I left it in the other room. I was going to go get it. Uh, I hate when men do that. That's my own opinion. Like, I can't tell if they're like lying about that or if they're like telling the truth. Like, I hope y'all know what I mean. Oh, wonderful. First I faint, and then I make a blubbering fool of myself. You know, I would have changed my speech a bit if I'd known that. Probably focused more on my many qualities. His fingers smoothed my cheekbone. I'm glad you didn't. It was honest. My breath caught. Well, that's me. Or, at least, the new me. Honest to a fault. He bent his head, lips claiming mine in a devastating kiss. Relief swamped me and made tears gather under my eyelids. Honestly, honesty was my new policy from here on out. The reward was too good. Lies? No way, not me. Is that a yes? I asked, coming up for air. A tiny tremor shook my voice. You're okay with me knowing the truth? His eyes searched mine. Tessa, how can you not know how much I love you? I've wanted to tell you multiple times, but you never let me get a word in. There's no one else for me. Explode 100 pumpkins if you want to. Make mistakes. Just make them with me. Oh, hey now. You might regret it. That's what she says. Okay, back to the story. You might regret it. Never. He brushed my mouth with another kiss. I'll remember you said that, detective. Derek, he growled. Huh? New rule. When we're all alone together, you call me Derek. I grinned. Finally, a rule I intend to follow. Going up on my toes, I wound my arms around his neck and dragged his mouth to mine. Derek groaned low in his throat, hands circling my waist. Delicious friction exploded my nerve endings as he locked me firmly against the solid planes of his chest. The scent of his skin filled my senses, drugging me faster than any poison. His tongue touched mine when I opened for him. The heat surged in my belly, moving lower. I matched his groan with one of my own, desire swirling within my body. He backed us up until my legs bumped the bed. His ruined jacket dropped to the floor when I slid my finger under the heavy fabric to push it over his shoulder. He was never wearing that one again. I kicked it away. His shirt came next. The air burned in my lungs as my palm swept the hard ridges of his abdomen. Okay, wait a minute. I hate to do this to everybody, but I think I'm gonna have to read just a little bit ahead because we are still on YouTube. So let me see what it says. I don't know if I can like read all of it if it goes too deep. If it goes, you know what I mean? It goes in depth. Okay, I'm gonna read it, but if it starts getting too in depth and detailed, I'm going to have to stop, I think. I think. I don't know. Can we do this? I'm really not sure. Okay, back to it. But I'm gonna go slow and I'm gonna hopefully it'll be okay. Dropping an urgent kiss along my jawline, he spoke hoarse in my ear. Are you sure? Yes, don't you dare deny a dying girl. He laughed and nipped the sensitive skin of my neck, teeth skimming my earlobe. You're not dying. I fainted. That has to. It counts for something. Hands at my wrist, he lifted me and eased me back onto the mattress. My shift bunched around my hips. Okay, wait a minute. So sorry. Let me read this for a second. Okay. I think I can do it. Hold on. Erase. Okay. I think I can do it. Okay. Here we go. I'll start back at the beginning of the paragraph. It counts for something. His hands at my waist. He lifted me and eased me back onto the mattress. My shift bunched around my hips, and I arched my back so his fingers could skate across my rib cage, light as mist. Pleasure tightened my stomach when his thumb brushed my. Eh, I can't say that word. He did it again, a slow circle that made sparks tingle at my fingertips. The current raced over my heated skin, transferring to his. Derek's breathing stopped. His eyes darkened at the sensation. Okay, so I wasn't bad at all magic. A possessive growl vibrated his chest, and he ground his hips into mine, teasing my mouth with a hungry kiss. Need pulled in my veins, thick and slushy. Thick and sluggish in total contrast to the bruising pound of my heart. Merciful spell books! He was wicked, his mouth slanted to take me deeper. You're so beautiful, he murmured as he sank his hands into my hair. His kiss turned achingly tender, breaking my heart and mending it back together. Acceptance softened my edges, rinsing away years of regret and failed spells. My shift landed next to Derek's destroyed jacket. The rest of his clothes followed. The action separated us for too long. Wretched clothes. I searched for his mouth, melting when his tongue stroked mine. He entered. I don't know if I can say that. Okay, I guess I can. He entered me in a slow thrust that made the first round of sparks seem like mere flicker. My fingers splayed over his back, sending little jolts into his skin. Arms like iron, Derek's whole body tightened, and he wrapped me in an embrace as he found a breathless rhythm. Pleasure spiraled in my core, then on a wave. He caught my quick inhale with his mouth, following me over the edge. My name was a reverent rasp from his lips. Holy enchanted moonstones. Time passed slowly. I snuggled into the crook of his arm, savoring the simple satisfaction of lying next to him. Thank God that's over. That made me so nervous trying to read that on YouTube. Sorry. I'll get better at it if we don't get in trouble, okay? This is the first time I'm doing this on a video, so just let's see what happens. I'll get better. Yeah, I'll feel better if we don't get in trouble for this. Somehow, okay, back to the story. Somehow minutes burned into an hour, and my eyes grew heavy with sleep. I was absent I was absent-mindedly gliding my fingers over his abdomen when Derek captured my hand and brought my palm to his mouth. I giggled and tried to tug it away. That tickles? Yeah, so did your fingernails. I rolled onto my side and propped my head up on my hand. What happens tomorrow, Derek? He smiled. I really like the new rule. It's my current favorite, though I have a newfound appreciation for rule number one. Always stay by your side. The rule is actually don't investigate alone, but your version is better, he sighed. Tomorrow we interview Helen to find out her role in the murder. I don't think she was working alone. She may have been partly responsible for Jane and Ella's death, but I doubt she knew Sophie. Me neither. There's something else out there, but we'll find him. There's someone else out there, sorry. There's someone else out there, but we'll find him. Do you think she'll talk? I don't know. If not to me, maybe she'll talk to her mother. We'll bring Olivia to the agency. We need to question her anyway. Find out if she knew what her daughter was up to. I sank against the pillow. That whole family has been shattered. What a waste. How do you handle the devastation this job uncovers? It's not easy. I'd say you get used to it, but I don't want that for you. I've been numb for so long. It's no way to live. I suppressed a grin. I guess it's a good thing I came along and obliterated all that. He laughed and tucked me closer into his side. Get some sleep. Will you stay? Depends on whether your friend curses me with a spirit if she finds us together in the morning. My silence made him squirm. Tessa, tell me that won't happen. Get some sleep. I kissed his cheek and pulled the blanket up to my ears. The weight of his arm draped over my middle mixed my middle mixed with the heat from his body made sleep an easy target. Derek nudged my shoulder. One of my eyes snapped open. What? I forgot to ask you something. Is it important? He nodded, nuzzled his forehead against my hair. I think so. Okay, ask. Did you really start the plague? Damn, I shouldn't have mentioned that. Yes, and I'll do it again if you tell anyone my secret. You'll be patient zero. I rolled over in a huff, but he dragged me back, anchoring me to his side. That's my witch. Aw. Okay, chapter 28. Vivian did not sick a spirit on him in the morning, but that might have had more to do with Derek's complimenting her baking skills than any affront to finding him with me. She eyed us over the rim of her teacup. Can I offer anyone another scone? He plucked the cranberry biscuit from the plate and dug in, his eyes half masked as he devoured the pastry. This is delicious, the best scones I've ever tasted. You're a wizard in the kitchen. Vivian preened, smoothing a hand over her glossy locks. I rolled my eyes. It's a mix. She buys it from the market. Don't get it too so excited. Vivian kicked my shin under the table. At the same time, Derek bumped my knee. I know. Like, you don't have to say that. Hush, he whispered. I want your friend to like me. She likes you fine. And will both of you stop hitting me? I'm still in recovery from my Sorry, my mic went out. She likes you fine, and will you both stop hitting me? I'm still in recovery from my harrowing ordeal. Now it was their turn to roll their eyes. I might have milked my less than near death experience as far as I could possibly go. It had lost its effectiveness even with Derek. Ugh, it was nice while it lasted. We should get to the agency so we can question Helen. Derek nodded in agreement, brushing the crumbs from his fingers. Vivian cleared away the plates, still giving me the eye for betraying her secret recipe. I would be too, though. Don't be telling people our secrets. I smiled anyway. It was nice to share breakfast with Derek and my best friend. After everything we'd gone through, I relished the quiet moment. I helped her to finish the dishes while Derek arranged for a carriage. I almost said car. She nudged me with her hip and flicked water in my face. What was that for? I wiped the droplets away. I'm happy for you, Tess, and I'm proud of you. I hope you finally see in yourself what I see, what we all see. I stacked the plates in the cupboard and I leaned against the counter. All right, go ahead. I know you're dying to say it. I'm shocked you've waited this long. Vivian blinked her eyes innocently. I don't have the slightest idea what you mean. Here I am, congratulating my friend who, against all odds, managed to repair her relationship. It's almost as if she were given sage advice from a goddess. Perhaps? Goddess? Please, try a meddler. You know, one day our roles will be reversed, and I plan to return the favor twofold. She snorted. We'll see. More water hit my face. Stop that! Viv grinned and pulled me into a hug, then dried her wet hands on the back of my dress. I laughed and did the same. They're such good friends. I love their friendship. Okay. The agency waiting room was quieter than usual. Estelle greeted us from her post as we walked in. Good morning, detective. The director wants to speak with you first thing. He's waiting in his office. Her eyes flashed with interest. Tessa, it's nice to see you. Does this mean... Derek nudged me past her desk without an answer. Estelle's chest deflated with a sigh. Still, I caught her eye before we turned down the hall and gave her a wink and a thumbs up. Relief washed over her feature and she beamed. I thought I told you to go easy on her. I elbowed Derek as we walked to the office. I did. She's on probation for a week. That's not fair. She was trying to bring us together. It was sweet. He paused in front of his door. Regardless of her intention, she sent you into an unfamiliar building. It was reckless. You could have been hurt. Come on, detective. I smoothed my palm over his shirt and played with his collar. She sent me into a room full of tea. That's hardly a den of peril. I don't care if the room was full of puppies. He caught my fingers. Stop playing with my collar. You're not getting your way. She stays on probation until the end of the week. Fine. Be surly about it. I will. He pulled me into his office and shut the door, then backed me against the wall. His fingers slid through my hair, tugging the strands until I tilted my head to meet his gaze. I'm feeling very surly at the moment. You're not following the rules. I bit the inside of my cheek. Which rules, detective? You know which one. He grounded his hip into mine, and I sucked in a breath. Didn't I tell you to write them down if you want me to remember them, detective? Tessa, I'm warning you. I have 5 minutes before I need to go and meet the director. And seeing as we're alone, I want to hear you say it. Now. You're looking at me the way you looked at me at the cranberry scones. Sorry, you're looking at me the way you looked at the cranberry scones. I'm sorry, I couldn't get that out for some reason. Derek never thought I'd be jealous of a. He cut me off, his mouth capturing mine. You taste better, he growled. My stomach flipped and I leaned into him, letting him press his thumb against my jaw to hold me in place as he savored my lips. I was going to have a hard time looking at breakfast items from now on. Derek's mouth dropped to my collarbone. If you kiss me every time I say your name, I might end up wearing it out. That's my plan. He pressed our foreheads together. Wait for me here. I'll speak with the director and then we'll interview Helen. I teased the hair at the nape of his neck. Can I sit behind your desk while I wait? He tapped his knuckle under my chin. Don't push it. Yes, detective. Derek's eyes narrowed dangerously but dragged himself away to grab a stack of files from his desk. The door closed firmly behind him and I covered my face with my hands, determined not to let him hear me squeal of happiness. I'm so happy for her. A witch didn't squeal ever. But if she did, it would sound a lot like the noise I tried to hide. Today was a new beginning. It was time to say goodbye to the past insecurities. My magic might never be perfect, but it didn't have to be. It was enough. I was enough. Aw, that's so good that she sees that. All morning, I'd been thinking of new ways to adapt my spells to better fit the agency's goals. The possibilities were endless. I sat in the chair across from Derek's desk and searched for his notebook, wanting to jot down a few ideas. It was buried beneath a stack of unopened letters. The top envelope caught my eye, and I picked it up, noticing it had been forwarded by the Ever Gazette. Was this a response to our ad? Removing the letter, I scanned its contents. My nerve endings tingled to life. The ad had worked. We had a lead on the rose. A man named Theo Beckett wanted to meet with us to discuss the plant's origin. I glanced at the address and wrinkled my eyebrow. It wasn't too far from the palace, but the area was remote. The office door opened, and I looked up to find Derek. His eyes, his features were drawn, and there was tension in every step as he entered the room. He dropped his files on the desk and sank in his chair. His hand scrubbed roughly over his face. A moment passed before he slammed a fist onto the desk. Damn it! What happened? Dread coiled in my stomach when he didn't answer right away. Derek, talk to me. His eyes met mine. Helen's dead. What? How? She was locked up, under guard. Someone didn't search her well enough. They found her in a cell before dawn. In the cell before dawn. There were poisonous berries in her hand. His eyes closed, and he took a harsh breath. It's over, Tessa. The king spoke with my superior. He's closing the case. They're putting the blame for Ella's death at Helen's feet and walking away. I shoved out of the chair. They can't do that. What about the other murders? They're turning a blind eye. Helen's connection to the murder of her stepsister is enough to remove suspicion from the prince. It's the only move the king has, unless he's willing to exile his son. If this continues and he's found guilty. I scoffed and turned on my heel, pacing the floor. Are we sure Helen killed herself? The whole thing sounds suspect. I agree, but there are no witnesses and no proof. Helen was our only lead. Without her and without backing from the agency, my hands are tied. I'll be reassigned. Derek's voice was tight with fury. Sophie's killer is out there. I thought we were getting close. I thought, hey, it's not over. I rounded the desk and took his face in my hands. We're not giving up. We're going to find Sophie's killer and bring justice to Jane and Ella. I'm not stopping until we do. And neither are you. Tessa, it's not that simple. I'd have to go behind the agency's back. Okay, let me know when there's a problem. His mouth hitched. I'll lose my job. Then I'll hire you at the magic shop, and if I have to sell it, we'll peddle potions out of a caravan. Besides, I know you. When you care about something, nothing stands in your way. The same goes for me. So let's do this together. Partners till the end. Always. He pulled me onto his lap, settling his hand on my hip. I love you, Tessa. I wiggled my eyebrow. You say that now, but you'll love me even more when I show you this. Reaching across the desk, I grabbed a letter from Theo Beckett. We had a response from the ad in the Gazette. It came in this morning. There's someone who knows where the roses came from, and all we have to do is meet with him. What do you say, Detective? Want to keep hunting killers with me? He grinned. Always. Theo Beckett had a limp. He also had white hair that curled around his ears and bald spot on the top of his head. His gnarled hands were tanned from the sun. The dirt was embedded in his fingernails. We found him in his vegetable garden, sowing seeds that would survive the winter. He stood and held out a hand. What can I do for you, Detective? We're here because you sent a letter to the Gazette about the specific type of rose. Theo snatched his chin. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Theo scratched his chin, leaving behind a dirt smudge. Yeah, that's right. I used to work for the palace, taking care of the grounds. I recognize the drawing from the paper. The flower is an aster mauve, sorry. It's been years since I've seen one. An aster mauve? I've never heard of it, I said, making a note. They're exceedingly rare and aren't local to this region. What makes them distinctive is their heart-shaped petals and their hardy growth cycle. They're known to last through heavy frost and even through part of the winter. And when was the last time you saw one? Derek asked. Theo furrowed his brow. Years ago. There was a young woman who worked for me, tending the palace garden. She had seedlings shipped from overseas, and we grew them in the palace greenhouse with thoughts of transplanting them onto the castle grounds. I looked up from my notebook. Palace greenhouse? I wasn't aware there was such a thing. There isn't anymore. It's been abandoned for years, but it's about half a mile from here. There were rumors back then that the king was having an affair. It wasn't any of my business, but the young woman, Diane was her name, got caught up in the rumor. Then, one day, she vanished. Never saw her again. It wasn't long after that we stopped using the greenhouse. I never did transplant those roses. Derek caught my eye. He had the same question I did. Did you think Diane had an affair with the king? It's possible. I always wondered what happened to her, but to be honest, there was a lot of turnover in the palace staff back then. So, someone leaving wasn't out of the norm. He picked up a pair of gardening gloves and gathered the trowel. Come with me. I'll take you up to the greenhouse so you can have a look. We traveled half a mile, the brush getting thicker as we went. The path winded through the dense forest when opened onto a clearing, where a massive glass building resided, its vaulted ceilings reaching up into the trees. The greenhouse was decrepit. I would love a big greenhouse like that. Sorry. Cracked windows smeared with years of grime peered back at us. Rusted iron trimmed the glass panes and formed an ornamental design along the roof. It looked ready to collapse if not for the overgrown branches holding it in place. Weeds and tangled vines choked the wall and the inside of the structure. Diane loved it here. She'd spend most of her time in the greenhouse. It's a shame to see it this way. It used to be beautiful, full of vibrant flowers. I rubbed a spot in the dirt with my sleeve to peer through the glass. What happened to the seedlings? Oddly enough, they vanished too. I never could wrap my head around that one. Theo kicked at the mound of dried grass. Diane must have taken them with her. It didn't add up. Clearly, Diane fit into the puzzle somewhere, but we were still missing a piece. The fact that she worked at the palace didn't bode well for the prince. He would have been a child when she was around, and likely wouldn't have had anything to do with her disappearance, assuming she had disappeared and didn't leave on her own. Excuse me. I groaned intently and pressed my fingers into my eyelids. Why did every lead create more questions? At least we'd found the origin of the roses. Now we needed to find out how Diane was connected to the murders. Thank you for your time, Mr. Beckett, and for showing us the greenhouse. I opened my notebook and looked over the entry. One other thing. Do you happen to remember Diane's last name? Theo rubbed the bald spot on his head and pursed his lips in thought. Mm, What was that? What was it? It's on the top of my tongue. He tapped his shoe. That's right, I remember. It was Porter. Diane Porter. My jaw dropped. I looked at Derek. Surprise widened his features. Did Diane have any family locally? He asked. Theo nodded. Yes, a sister. I think her name was Jane. Uh-oh. All right, beautiful ones. I'm gonna stop there. Please be sure to check out in a couple of days because we're almost at the end. In a couple of days, I'm gonna put all of the chapters together like I did the first book so that you can binge it. Okay, but I won't do that till after we reach the finale. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.